It's the 25th of the 3rd, 2025. The time is 3 minutes past 8. We've got to talk about some F1 news. Ferrari being shamed by the Italian press and media, and I would contend rightfully so. Now it seems, however, Loic Serra has got a solve for their multitudinous problems. George Russell getting shouted out by Toto Wolff. We've got to talk about Yuki Tsunoda potentially being announced as the replacement for Liam Lawson as soon as the Suzuka Grand Prix, the Japanese Grand Prix, and that comes from the Limburger. And so too, we've got to talk about Max Verstappen. As always, Benzi, what's going on? Honda, yeah, I read Benzi. We'll talk about it. What's going on? What is? Go on, and let's talk about Ferrari in the first instance. Because again, they were shameful, were they not? This is a sham, a nonsense from Scuderia Ferrari. The red overalls, the yellow badge, the black prancing horse atop. This is meant to be heritage, prestige, the only team in F1 who have been in F1 since its inception 75 years ago in 1950, and they do this, chat. This is how they celebrate. This is how they pay homage to all that came before by multitudinous errors, getting disqualified both bloody cars for different reasons, unacceptable. You will recall that Rob Smedley back in his day, Felipe Massa, Michael Schumacher said, if you walk around Maranello, Milan, Rome, and you are winning, if you are a member of a winning Scuderia, then you don't need to buy any drinks. You won't need to pay for a dinner. You'll be worshipped. You've already seen at the Monza Grand Prix the pictures of Charles Leclerc, San Charles Leclerc, and Saint Sir Lewis Carr. They will be adorned gods, deities. However, if you're racing for Scuderia Ferrari, a team member, and you are losing, that brings shame on the family name. For Scuderia Ferrari is Italy's team, very different to a Mercedes, say, or a Red Bull. This is tribal now. This is patriotism. And therefore, if you lose, you are bringing shame on the Italian family name, mafioso settings. Therefore, they will spit at you in the streets. Rob Smedley's words when he was working for the red team, not mine. And that's why you see the likes of Autoracer.it and the rest of the Italian press and media coming for Scuderia Ferrari, Frederic Vasseur in real time, because they were shameful. How very dare they get to, by dint of that not a mistake, what underweight and excessive plank wear. Those are the mistakes that we're making now. Like, this is nonsense, and I agree with them. So too, you can talk about the bloody communication between Sir Lewis and Ricardo Adam. It feels like it's a clown show. You guys have seen the meme of all the Ferrari bods on the pit wall turning around and have all got the clown faces. That's what we're seeing again. Lest we forget, Frederic Vasseur, don't have too long. You can't continue as a going concern, as a team principal of the red team, not for too long at least, if you keep not winning. 3 years on average. Dominicali didn't last too long. Bonotto, neither. Arrivabene didn't last. None of them were winning. You need to be a Jean Todt, and that's what they hoped Frederic Vasseur would be. But I would contend, on the evidence of the past 2 race weekend, that Freddie Vasseur has himself some work to do. So too Loic Serra. Because they're talking about the problems with the car. The car looks fast, or at least it looked fast on Saturday. So what happens? What's the compare and contrast? What's going on with that car? Matthew Brown, you're a legend. Mark this day down, because I'm going to call it Max will move to Mercedes before the year is. We're going to get to it, Matthew, I'm telling you. Not like we haven't talked about it before, but it is news, and it is news-ing. Let me talk about this Ferrari circumstance. And Matthew Brown, you're far too kind, as always. This article reads, Ferrari has not even article, this is De Kaiser, one of the goatiest Italian F1 journos to ever goat. He says as follows: Ferrari has hit rock bottom in every sense. There is nothing worse than double disqualification. You can hear the pain in this Italian journo's intonation. Yeah, the words that he's using are quite pointed now. He continues, heights, planks are not the cause of the puzzle, but simple consequence of a too soft rear end. Serra is working on the first updates. Ergo, Scuderia Ferrari are going to need to bring updates because they can't run the car as low as they wanted. The suspension at the rear is simply not stiff enough. That's why you see them when they have low fuel, all of a sudden they look like the market lead. A world beater, Sir Lewis Hamilton looked incredible in that car, at one with a vehicle that we haven't never seen him before, but we haven't seen him like that for ages. He looked rapid, like he was ready to compete for a world championship. And then fast forward to Sunday, and all of a sudden the car's got in a full load of fuel. So too is it going a full race distance, calling into question its ability to manage and mitigate for tyre deg. And then all of a sudden its pace is fugazi. Gonzo, Sekabo disappeared, just like Kaiser Soze in Usual Suspects, and they will need to fix for that in real time. I don't want to say Houston we have problems as far as Ferrari, but it's a different level of pressure that as far as the Tifosi when you pair that with Sir Lewis Hamilton. Lest we forget, he's not a businessman, he's a business man. Now there are stakes of the financial resource variety. Share prices are at stake, and so too careers and legacies, some might say. Oh, by the way, music is life. I will say it now. Watch this space. Matt's up. Geez, everybody's calling the Max leaving. Eh? What's going on at Umar? You're a legend. Let's talk about George, because Toto's bigging up his charge, George Russell. Now, the context for this is as follows. For the longest time, Toto's boy has always been King George Russell of Kingsley in Norfolk. You will recall many cycles ago at the Imola Grand Prix when George yeeted it into the side of one Valtteri Bottas. George's fault, mind, and Toto the boy who cried wolf took pity on his charge because he thinks that George is a future protege, maybe not quite the next Max Verstappen, but potentially he's growing into that. Up to that point, Toto the boy who cried wolf said that George extracts the maximum of his car, the tyres and the strategy. That the Chinese Grand Prix was a brilliant drive from George. All these discussions about Lewis, who is the biggest person in the sport, leaving to Ferrari is a great story. Kimi coming in as the youngest driver and the high potential, great story. So little, however, was said about George. I always said that that's not right. You can just hear Toto's voice with that. That's not right, Mikey. Not right, because he's one of the top drivers there. If you want me to name 3 that I consider to be top drivers, George is absolutely among them, if not top 2, and maybe on his way to top 1. Go on and let's dissect for this. Oh, the humanity chat. George Russell, top 3. Go on then. Who are we kicking out of that top 3 equation then? Who's he? Go on then. Here's your top 3. I'm going to speak my truth here. You've got to put Max in there. You've got to put Lewis. Now you can pick and choose. Maybe Charles, maybe Lando as your 3rd. For him to creep into the top 3, okay, cool. So you're kicking out either Lando or a Charles to kick into the top 2, though. Which name are you kicking out, Toto Wolff? That's the question, because you know that's blasphemy already if you're kicking out Sir Lewis Cotton. If you're kicking out Max Verstappen, blasphemy of equal measure. How very dare you, Toto Wolff, insinuate that George Russell, as at March of 2025, is better than either one as a driver, as an F1 peddler, than Sir Lewis Carr or Maximilian Verstappen, 4 times soon to be 4. How very dare you, Toto Wolff? I can't take this dude serious. I understand propaganda is a thing, and I understand that Toto is incentivized. Now, there is agency in him bigging up his boy in real time. But if he thought that, then why was he having conversations with Max Verstappen last year? During the summer break, so too over the course of the Miami Grand Prix? Why is there still open communications between Team Verstappen, father of Max, Raymond Vermeulen and Mercedes? If you believe these things that you are saying, Toto, if you believe this rhetoric that you're leveraging, then why are you still trying to sign one Maximilian Verstappen? Yes, I would argue that George is becoming ripe. As far as the way in which he delivers in an F1 car, he's almost the antithesis of a Lando Norris, who gets the yips at the start of a race. George Russell gets them at the end. Please see Singapore 2023. And again, when there's stakes, when there's a podium or even 25 points on the line, all of a sudden George Russell forgets the killer that he is and starts to make mistakes and mistakes of the unforced variety. And that's not good. However, sometimes you got to zoom out and assess somebody in real time. What's he done for you lately? No real mistakes to mention of. Not noteworthy, at least from King George, if you're arguing. The last one Australia was a bad one, right? Last year, though, not 2025. Like last year, Australia, when he yeeted it into the gearbox of Fernando Alonso because he was too busy looking at the steering wheel, playing with his settings. But since then, the back end of last year, he's not been too bad. Let me say this for the avoidance of doubt. There are a few F1 minds infinitely goatier than me who are picking King George Russell to do the Alain Prost points accumulator thing to win the 2025 Driver Championship no less by dint of his consistency. Sometimes you just need to finish whilst all of those around you are crashing it, yeeting it into the barrier, embodying nothing if not inconsistency. And that's how some of the greatest F1 minds that I've ever come across say that King George could win himself a championship as soon as this year. Yes, 2025. And far from it to be me to disagree with them. Maybe therefore he is top two. But which of Sir Lewis and Max Toto are you kicking out? That's my issue. You just said it all together. I mean, got to be honest, George this year has been faultless. I don't disagree. I don't think he could have done better, or anyone for that matter could have done better than George. Oh, I don't know about that. That feels like that second clause just feels a bit reachy for me. Feels just a bit reachy. OG Zid, what are you saying? Lazy engineered thought. Yes, George is currently a faster driver. That doesn't mean he's better driver. Yeah, no, he's more than speed that goes into that equation, right? Especially if you're talking about a championship. Oh, and by the way, let's talk about the Limburger Dutch periodical, Dutch newspaper, F1 publication, speaking today. Not even an F1, but news publication speaking on F1. Here's what Dave said. That Yuki Tsunoda, they've announced officially, reporting it as if it's happened, that Yuki Tsunoda-san will be driving in that second seat alongside Max Verstappen as soon as the Japanese Grand Prix, his home Grand Prix at the legendary track that is Suzuka. Honestly, this is chaos. Now, we've been talking about this for long. It has been rumoured, but the Limburger have come out and announced it as if they know it's official. Dutch newspaper, do they have links to one Maximilian Verstappen? Potentially. Otherwise, why would they be reporting it? Clearly, they have a source. Otherwise, they wouldn't be running with it. Here's what they've said. They reported that the Honda engine power unit provider was prepared to pay Red Bull an additional 10 million euros to guarantee Yuki Tsunoda a drive for this year. That was when they were testing, right, when they hadn't given the job to Liam Lawson. It is claimed that the Japanese manufacturer already pays 10 million euros to Racing Bulls for his seat. It was a move rebuffed at the time, and instead Horner, Helmut Marko, went for one Liam Lawson. It is further suggested in the Limburger that Honda has recently approached again, with Red Bull inquiring how much it would be willing to pay for Tsunoda-san to take up the seat alongside Maximilian Verstappen. The suggestion is it is willing, Honda are willing to pay several millions. It feels like Checo Perez all of a sudden. If you don't have a driver ready to step up to the plate, then cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar bills. Your financial resource will always have a part to play. It will always be the biggest slice of that causation pie. Now, you're going to argue that Tsunoda-san deserves it? Absolutely. Of the options that they have available, that's fit and ready as at the 25th of the 3rd, 2025, then of course Tsunoda is pole position, more so than Isaac Hadjar, as impressive as that dude has been the first two races. Are you going to give it to Arvin Lindblad? Not yet, not ready, still too green, needs to get his feet underneath that Red Bull table just yet. Get some racing done in F2, some experience behind him, and then he might be ready. But as at now, got to be Tsunoda-san, and then you apply this extra millions that Honda are willing to pay. Slam dunk. Take that to the bank. Tsunoda-san, the Limburger reports, will be the number 2 Red Bull Racing driver at the Japanese Grand Prix. And let me just say, as of Liam Lawson, I said earlier on this morning that I don't think Liam Lawson he doesn't cut a very empathetic figure. He's young. You know what I mean? He's young and he's a bit immature and a bit overconfident, especially if confidence should be a function of your not insubstantial talents. However, I feel bad for the dude. He wasn't given the pipeworks, the infrastructure. Helmut Marko, Christian Horner, far too impatient. He was doomed to fail, and it was a sword of Damocles of a role, right? It was a matter of when and not if, especially if you qualify in P20, P18. Like, what are we doing here? In a Red Bull, and Max Verstappen is keeping the McLarens in the quickest car, ostensibly, honest over the course of an entire race week. It's not good enough, but it was never going to be good enough, and therein lies my issue. That's why, even though I don't like necessarily one Liam Lawson, I feel bad for the chap. Oh, and by the way, if you recall, Liam Lawson did do a TPC session last year, and in that, the Red Bull bods who paid witness, who were there in real time, said of Liam Lawson's performance that they were none too pleased. Nobody was impressed, that he lacked pace as versus the benchmark Maximilian Verstappen time. Now, you got to normalise for the variables, and of course those great minds over at Red Bull Racing would have done that, but even that notwithstanding, they were none too impressed with Liam Lawson. So why now then? Oh, of course they're trying to fit a circular shape into a square hole. Doesn't make sense. Go on, let's talk about Max Verstappen. 564, you're a legend, Joanna. A proper legend. Honda pay driver, in essence, Benzie, that's what it sounds like, right? But I mean, a couple million will always sweeten a deal. Do you know what I mean? If you've got a difficult decision make, then that will make it infinitely less difficult, particularly if you're talking about something that Red Bull have struggled with over the past 12, 24 months, being their second driver alongside Maximilian Verstappen. Now, will Tsunoda-san kill it? Will he jump in that car and look like Max Verstappen? Probably not. Probably not. I'd argue no chance. Like, do you know what I mean? It's not the most likely outcome, I will say that much. But I mean, sometimes you got to give a digit. Imagine if he jumped in there and all of a sudden he was quick and started jumping it on pole. Oh, the humanity, OG Zilly, you're a legend. If Yuki can't handle that Red Bull as well, where did they turn to next? Arvid Lindblad, sir. They need a year, though. I think Yuki Tsunoda's a placeholder, so they may as well just get some money whilst they're doing it right, even if he isn't fit for purpose. Worrisome for them. Might as well just focus on getting the most development time for 2026. I tell you what they need to focus on, OG Zilla. They need to focus on keeping one Max Verstappen, because if he leaves, that would be a self-fulfilling prophecy as far as what Jos Verstappen said, father of Max, that team will implode. He's propping them up. Red Bull are a tent and he is the frames. They are nothing without Max Verstappen. They'll be left with a car that's difficult to drive, that none of those other 19 can drive, and no Max Verstappen. I'm telling you, this is going to get chaotic. And then you hear Robert Dornbos, ex-F1 driver, say that he thinks Max Verstappen's already said a secret goodbye to Red Bull. Translation difficulties. Here's where it gets techie. I'm not sure if he means a secret goodbye, like he's already said goodbye to his team members, to the guys and girls that change his tyres. I think he's saying that secretly inside, Max Verstappen has already confessed to himself that he doesn't want to be at Red Bull if they don't have a car capable of winning championship. I will see Robert that and raise him this. This isn't secret. He's told us as much. Max has always said that he's not hanging around for the medium to long term, especially if they don't have a car. What am I staying there for? I'm not looking to do another 200 races. Max would say, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. I would need a semblance of harmony, which he no longer has, and I will need to stay at the team, the guys and girls capable of building a race car capable of winning races and therefore championships. Build the car, then. Those three things. He has none of them. So what are we doing here? It's going to get techie. I would see Robert that and raise him this. I think he's told us that. You only need to go and look at the interview. I'd love to show you this interview, but I can't, and I don't want to get in trouble with our paymasters. But if you see the interview, the question was asked as follows. Max, how long will you give Red Bull before you leave? No, will you give them time? The interviewer corrects her verbiage, the way in which she's termed and couched the question, corrects it straight away and makes it a yes or no question. Max Verstappen does one of these, and then the words that come out of his mouth are in stark contrast, and he says, yeah, I will absolutely give Red Bull the amount of time. It's nothing to me. I'm very, very relaxed, both inside the cockpit and outside. So the words coming out of Max Verstappen's mouth, that's the exam answer though. However, his body language, and I'm no body language expert, but if you consult one, I'm sure they'll tell you that the leakage will come through the head. Max Verstappen does one of the, now maybe it's a nothing burger. He's recoiling from the absurdity even, the absurdity of the question in his mind. Maybe that's what Max Verstappen's thinking. He's doing one of these like, you're off the mark. But as I read that question and his reaction to it, it seemed like Max Verstappen was doing one of these like, deep down inside. And because he's told us already that he's not looking to hang around if Red Bull don't build him a car, I think Max Verstappen might already be checked out. And Robert Dornbus puts it this way, and this is where it gets techie. He says he thinks that Max Verstappen already, stark contrast to last year in his demeanour. Umont, that's what I'm worried about. What's Umont saying? What's going on, Neil? You're a legend. It's hard to have friends when you're POS. Just, I agree. Toto looks so happy. I feel like the deal is done. Mate, go on then. Let me tell you this. Robert Dornbus makes this point, and it's a brilliant point and one that didn't occur to me. But as soon as I read it, it's like, hang on, that actually makes sense. Compare and contrast. Let's do before and after. Rewind back to, I don't know, Austria. Okay, so the title is on the line then. So to Brazil. Max has spoken about his time before the Brazilian Grand Prix and how his hands were numb. Some people say he was talking about Abu Dhabi then, but I think he was talking about Brazil because it was tense, it was pressure. Lando Norris 2024, back end of was in the ascendancy. Momentum was going parabolic. And so therefore, by extension, the mountain up which one Maximilian Verstappen had to climb, the gradient for it got infinitely more steep all of a sudden. It was tough. It was challenging circumstances. And Max's demeanour, therefore, was tense. And again, fast forward to today, compare and contrast. Okay, so it's the beginning of the season and not the end. However, Max Verstappen seems far too relaxed. You'll recall Hungary when he didn't have the car and it wouldn't turn. I'm on -5 brake bias, Max said, and the thing still won't fudging turn, and he didn't say fudge. That's who I know Max Verstappen to be, a killer if ever I've seen one. He doesn't mess about on the radio, super aggressive, especially when he doesn't have the minerals, when he doesn't have the wheels underneath him. He would destroy GP, he would destroy the team, openly criticise them, just like, I don't know, any football manager worth their metal, openly criticise the team in public with a view to weaponise it to spur them on to the next level and fix for the multitudinous travails of the car. That was Max Verstappen last year. This year, you'd argue almost they find themselves in a worse circumstance. It was only the second half of the year when McLaren started to close that gap. And even then, the RB20 was still fast, right? Max Verstappen was still capable of winning races in the second half. Now, they're P7. Do you know what I mean? Even in the hands of Max Verstappen, who's not a bad peddler, by the way, normalised for that. And where are they then? Well, where Liam Lawson's been put in the car, apparently, which is bloody P20. So then if you imagine Max Verstappen of 2024, where's all the swearing gone, chat? Why is Max Verstappen, non-rhetorical question here, why is Max Verstappen all of a sudden so relaxed in the quagmire of Red Bull's mediocrity? That 2024 Max wouldn't have been that way. What's brought on this cool, calm demeanour in front of the world's press and media? Now, maybe it's just Max maturing, got a little one on the way potentially. You've got to factor all these things into this equation. Or maybe Max's future already lies elsewhere and he's got nothing to fight for. He's on gardening leave, just like Adrian Newey was the other day, euphemistically speaking. Maybe that might be a thing, as Robert Dornbus puts it. He says, given this whole situation, Max Verstappen is a little too relaxed. I think Max has already secretly said goodbye to the team. His goodbyes to the team. Mate, I don't think that's the worst theory, you know. And again, we're speculating and conjecture. This is always techier than techie things when you try to piece together the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. This might be me doing causation apophenia and connecting dots that shouldn't be connected. But with all that we know, 1 billion contract offer from Aston Martin still there in perpetuity for Max Verstappen until the end of his career. What are we doing? 1 billion. That's life-changing money, even for a rich man, a 4-time champion rich man like Max Verstappen. 1 billion. That, ladies and gents, is chaos. So too, you've got Toto still circling desperately. And again, he's talked all this stuff about King George, but where's King George's contract? If you think he's that good, why didn't you sign him up to a long-term deal? No, George's contract is due to expire at the end of this season. What are you talking about, Toto, then? You talk all this stuff, but then where's your actions, sir? Which means to me that I think this... Listen, it still feels unlikely, but is it the most unlikely outcome? Not anymore. Oh, and by the way, if you want further confirmation of the miracles that Maximilian Verstappen is pulling off, you only need to see the difficulty that's been posed to Max Verstappen as far as the 2025 season is as follows. Over the past 25 races, the trend is your friend, some say, until there's a bend. Over the last 25 races, Max Verstappen has scored 337 points. Over the last 25 races, Lando Norris has scored 335. Therefore, if the championship were over the past 25, it would be a lot closer than were the 2024 championship. Shortly thereafter, you have Oscar Jack Piastri scoring a 285 over the last 25. The second Red Bull driver has scored 49. There are problems now. There are so much holes in that Red Bull pail of water. Can you still call it a pail? Is it not just then a hole? There are multitudinous things, big issues of material consequences for which Horner and Marco need to solve now, not tomorrow. That's why they're rushing through this Liam Lawson thing, because they can't afford to make any more mistakes. Max Verstappen is already looking at pastures anew. There are contracts aplenty in front of him, and maybe he just might sign one. Maybe. Modern day John. Max to Mercedes, he seems so settled considering everything's going. That's what I'm saying, modern day John. When have you ever seen a Max Verstappen in a car that epitomizes mediocrity? P6, P7 is where he says that car should have been. When have you ever seen Max in front of the world's press and media, not chastising his team, not going hard, scorched earth each and every single... I've never seen it erstwhile. Before 2025 and this new calm killer Max Verstappen that's not cursing, zero expletives, he's not chastising his team over the radio. You'll recall Hungary when he said, you lot gave me this rubbish strategy, I'm just trying to rescue it, shut up, leave me alone. That was Max then. What has changed, chat? There has been variable change of material, the integers of material, aren't they? This is a completely different Max Verstappen, and I'm asking the question, non-rhetorical, why? Potentially, Max has grown a year. Potentially, he's put all F1 into context and participating is what counts, and that maybe he's not just after the gold medal anymore, or maybe all of those things are still who Max Verstappen is. Maybe Max wants to win now, the 5th consecutive. More than ever. The only one other person to do it, Michael Schumacher, 2000 to 2004. Maybe Max Verstappen is who he always has been, but maybe he's just checked out. Maybe he's disinvested, and maybe this is, euphemistically speaking, some garden leave for Max Verstappen. They call Cameron a Lewis hater, yet their own bias is clear as day. They just can't stand a Brit who sees the sport the right way. Oh, Umont, you're a legend. And far too. Go on, and let's address this as we round third base, because you know what? I need to pick up the phone and speak to Nasha Quick Stop F1 at some point. The resident Cameron CC channel. F1, Lewis Hamilton fan. Listen, I'll always be a Sir Lewis Hamilton fan. Fudge what anybody. Listen, you should never listen to what other people. If you think something deep in your heart, never if I'm going to get proselytized here for a second, you should never let anybody else tell you what you are or not. Especially not people that are looking at you through a screen or a mobile phone. How do they know anything? The fact that they feel sufficiently emboldened to even level something at you, to characterize you in such a way that's different from the way that you characterize yourself, then that says more about them than you, right? That's a them problem, not a you. But as far as Sir Lewis Hamilton, Joker Safak in the house, which team should he choose, Mercedes or Aston Martin? Oh, the humanity, please smash the likes. Safak, you're a legend. Which team should he choose? Oh, Safak. Exam questions. After your boy Cameron's just encouraged Sir Lewis Hamilton to take the jump and tick his tick his F1 bucket list box. That's driving for Ferrari. Sometimes wherever Max thinks that he's got the best chance of winning is the honest truth. If Max is only looking to hang around for the next 2 years, I'd argue Mercedes, in their current form, second quickest car now. Stable, drivable. 2026, they're going to have like the best power unit by all accounts. So probably Mercedes. That's chaos that I'm saying that, Safak. Look what you've had me confess. Go on, let me go in on Sir Lewis Hamilton fan. Scorched earth. What's wrong with me and my intonation today? Scorched earth was around third base on Sir Lewis Hamilton fans. You saw me talk about the race win was the sprint race win was a sprint race win. But I mean, sometimes, like when you're looking to just see another victory from Sir Lewis Hamilton, you'll clutch onto it. I didn't believe that Lewis was going to get that done. He wasn't the favourite. He wasn't even fourth favourite. So that was a massively unexpected event, and he was bloody brilliant at his brilliant best. The way he ushered out, if you're going to get detailed and deep dive it, the way he ushered Maximilian Verstappen towards the grass off the start, super aggressive, very cultured in his defensive posture. That's proper Sir Lewis Hamilton. Managed the race from the front, lights the flag, managed the gap between himself and Max Verstappen, like the veteran that he is. He was God tier in the sprint race, and it was a God tier sprint quali from him for once, and I'm loving that. That bodes well. Those are green shoots for Sir Lewis Hamilton fans around the world, both friendly and foe, extremists, fundamentalists, and casuals. Of course it is. However, then you fast forward to the race proper, and I don't really like. I'll take the small wins as a Sir Lewis Hamilton fan, but the Sir Lewis that I know, I think that dude would have wanted to win. He doesn't want to win a sprint. Like, he was loving it. Like, he had that giggly, you know what I mean? That boyish Rye House giggle, that mischievous element to Sir Lewis came to the fore again. Like, he was loving the fact that he won a race. 8 points tick, but there are 25 points at stake on Sunday. And that's that. If for me, the lens through which I consume my Formula One, that's what I wanted to see Lewis now in that Ferrari. I want to see him now 25 points. For me to celebrate too hard at 8, I feel like I'm doing his legacy a disservice. But again, that's the Lewis Hamilton lens through which I ingest my Lewis Hamilton sporting endeavour. Mama Cameron, on the other hand, we're gonna win. It's the 8th. We're back. Mercedes was sabotaged. I'm like, fuck. Like, come on. What are we doing here? The level, Abbots of Unreason extra. Like, you just can't even write it. And then you get the Sir Lewis Hamilton fans there in my comments talking back and forth with us on here. Oh, Cameron, you didn't even look happy when you won. It was 2 a.m. in the morning, chap. Like, what, you think I'd be celebrating at 2 a.m. in the morning, waking up like, what are they talking about? It's nonsense, absolutely ridiculous. And so then I'd like, you know what, let me stay tuned and see if we get another Silverstone 2024. So let's see if he can win 25 points. And then he couldn't, and it was chaos and it was madness at the altar of errors of the unforced variety. Not his necessarily, but bloody Ferraris. Lest we forget, this is the second time in 2 races when the 2 Ferrari drivers in the red car with the yellow badge and the black prancing horse atop have come together on track. Cheeky love kiss setting. So what are we doing here? Last weekend, or the weekend before last, it was bloody communication and like the disagreement and failing to finesse your message and curry favour. Like, now it's bloody, at least as far as the footage on TV, it looked like Ricardo Adami was like, hurry up, mate, get out the way. And Lewis was like, well, listen, I'll get out the way. I suggested it. I'll get out the way when I'm ready. It doesn't look like a frictionless, agile organisation over there. But again, maybe that's my naivete, right? What did you expect from Scuderia Ferrari? Okay, cool. That the car was on the come up last year, but the institution is the institution. Nothing if not antiquated. Conspiracy theory. Red Bull negotiates a big money deal for Colapinto. Apparently, that's a thing but if it wasn't for Jack Doohan's mistakes, that's a thing that could happen. Yuki's in for Lawson. Yeah, I heard. Lazy. We've talked about that already. Yuki, but yeah, no, I don't know. This plot, this narrative will want to run, but I cannot. No, I will not sacrifice truth nor objectivity at the altar of partisanship, nor any other confirmation bias. Not even at the altar of Sir Lewis Hamilton. I just cannot. I can't do it. I can't do it. People want to talk, oh, he's back. He's never been gone. As if we didn't see the last 2 years. And Lewis Hamilton himself saying that he was struggling. I'm not the one to disbelieve the evidence of my own eyes and ears. And I think that's why we're building the community that we're building on this channel. Truth. Sometimes I'm not going to bat 1,000. Do you know what I mean? But it's my responsibility to bring forth, to put forth as my principles, suppositions, and Magna Carta, decent level insight and common sense theses, surely. And if I come on here and say Lewis Hamilton is in his prime, I mean, you can't say I'm an abbot of unreason then, based upon the evidence that we've seen over the past 24 months. But I digress. Guys, I'm going to run. I need to log back on and punch some numbers into a spreadsheet. You guys have been legends between now and next time, as always. The prosecution rests no further questions, Your Honour.